Same thing down there. Indoor farming.
Indoor farming. Is that like greenhouse, or what do you mean indoor farming?
Indoor farming is you go shopping and you see in the fruit and vegetables, you see sprouts.
Yeah.
Everyone has sprouts.
Right, yeah.
Okay, so I was probably one of the first people to be doing that. And
okay.
We started off the first week with a half a dozen little packages of sprouts. Within 2 weeks, I was shipping a half a ton a week.
Well, you had to grow them. I mean,
that's right.
You grew them in hot-houses or what?
No, I came up with systems.
Okay.
I actually invented systems.
Okay.
Which was incredible. Without going into detail.
Yeah. You were a farmer, like.
Yeah, indoor farming.
Yeah, right.
And
indoor.
Indoor, because you're right. You grow it indoor, hydroponics.
Hydroponics as well. Right. Hydroponics, isn't it?
And
yeah.
I would ship that down to the city. I said a half a ton a week. And that's a lot of sprouts.
It sure heck is. It's seasonal, is it not?
No, because it's indoors.
I'll be darned.
Yeah, it's great.
But it seems to me you might have been ahead of curve. Urban gardens are starting to happen now and so forth. So there's more of that kind of thing going on rather than great big industrial farms to produce most of the stuff. Is it anything tied in? Were you tied into the organic movement that's beginning to surface now? People wanting to avoid pesticides and all that?
Yeah, it was pretty weird. I was considered pretty weird back then. We're going back actually 45 years ago.
Wow.
When I was eating and buying and growing organically.
Oh, really?
Yeah. People would say to me, "Hey, Harris, what do you want, live forever?" And I say, "No, I think you have a day, a date, a time you're out of this place." But I take care of myself because
you're looking in great shape, yeah.
I don't ever want to know that I have a kidney, a liver, a lung, a stomach, so I take care of them in hopes they'll take care of me. Fast forward 45 years later, and people used to make fun of me. They now look at me and they go, "Oh my God, you don't even have an aspirin in your house for 45 years."
Is that a true fact, right?
That's a true fact. Outside, if I go to the dentist and I got to do something, he says, "You have to take a Tylenol because I did an implant."
Yeah.
You know, no medications. Nothing.
So you've been able to lead healthy life. You're in great shape. Do you work out and that kind of stuff? And
Sure.
You're health conscious, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
People would say to me,
important investment of attention, yeah.
Best investment.
Yeah.
People invest in stocks, real estate, you name it. The best investment, Harold, is in yourself because it has the best payoff.
Yeah.
Now, people, it's interesting. People would say to me as they saw that I wasn't so crazy, I was feeling good.
Yeah.
What do you eat? Tell me what to eat.
Yeah. What do you eat? I say that to people who look really good. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And here's an answer, stock answer for 45 years. It's not knowing what to eat. It's knowing what not to eat. And one of the things is, I say, read your labels. Yeah. If it has things on it, the ingredients that you can't pronounce, it's a good shot you shouldn't be eating it.
Really? Chemicals, right?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I bumped into someone. I was at a friend's funeral, and the relatives were there who always used to make fun of me. And he said to me, "Are you still eating that health food?"
Yeah.
And I go, "No." He says, I thought so. I said, "What I eat is food. It grew on this planet for a zillion years before people got here.
Yeah.
I don't call it health food. I call it food. What you're eating in packages and wrappers, I'm not too sure what that is.
Yeah.
You call that food. I don't know what that is."
Well, there's a lot of movement around that, isn't there now? I mean, you're trying to get away from the what do you call it, insecticides and things like that of industrial farming. There's a lot of movement away from that. It seems to me. A lot of people are doing their own gardening and so forth organically.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. The pesticides, insecticides, they're meant to kill life, you know, the bugs and things.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, your life, you and I are living life.
Yeah.
I don't want to consume that stuff. So I eat out. I love my slice of pizza and my steak.
Yeah.
Anything comes in the house, okay, is organic.
So you're not like a vegan or a vegetarian or anything?
No,
I
don't think they're healthy.
No, you don't. Well, that's interesting.
Not.
A lot of people think that, you know. It's made me wonder sometimes, you know.
No, I mean, they eat a lot of junk. You know, things in packages, artificial flavor. They eat stuff. I don't eat. Just a lot of fruits and vegetables, some organic chicken in the house, nice piece of fish, organic steak, and a nice Italian meal on the outside with a little glass of wine, with a nice red glass of wine.
Yeah, right. Well, whatever you've done, keep doing it because you seem to be in really good shape.
It works.
And you were doing that for quite a while And so that's it. That's really interesting. That's a very interesting beginning. And you got going right from the get-go when you were in your 20s even. You were beginning to cotton on to the idea of taking care of yourself.
Yeah, well,
that's a lot of people think we're going to live forever, and they let go a little bit that way.
Oh no! Yeah. Like I said, nothing bothers me. I want to get up every day, be able to put in a good day's work. As long as these parts leave me alone,
yeah,
I'm fine.
Well, I think that's a good idea. Congratulations on that. So after the farming, you were out in Long Island somewhere, you said, or something?
Oh no, we go upstate, and we moved to Florida for a while and did that. Then we came back to New York. Mm-hmm. And my sons were old enough, and we opened up a daily car rental business.
You've always been sort of in business, or have a business mentality, or
always in business.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I love being in control of what's
your
going
life
on
situation, maybe also.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Right.
Absolutely. If you're not and you leave it to someone else, what do you think they have planned for you?
You're probably the best person to make a good deal for yourself. Probably there is on the planet. If you just think about it, maybe.
You know what a good deal is, and this is why.
I'll tell you one good deal is to go to Harry Helps.
Harris,
because you
Harris
Helps. Sorry,
on.
Harris Helps because you give a lot of good tips to people that make a lot of good sense, practical good sense. No.
So you said it's all about common sense.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's bad. And then you said a good deal. To me, what a good deal wasn't one way. That it worked well for me and you, the both of us. Mm-hmm. Always treating it was a two-way street. Mm-hmm. That way, you'd always look forward to coming back and working with Harris.
Isn't there a golden rule that says something along those lines? Or a lot of the philosophers have told us that, and a lot of the people who understand human nature and the world counsel that kind of attitude in life. I think it's very important. Yeah. Do unto others, you'd have them do unto you.
There you
so
go.
Forth, right?
Bottom line, except that's not practice. There's this little
too much shenanigans going on.
Called greed.
Yeah, greed.
No one has enough. And that's why I wrote the book.
Yeah, this is the book. It's a great title. It's my money and I want it. It's my money and I want it.
That's right.
Because there's a lot of people who are taking money that doesn't rightfully belong to them in the name of some business deal that's not doing well by the other citizens. A lot of shenanigans going on, right?
In the name of the stockholder.
Yeah, and it's getting worse, do you think, through time? We both lived a while. I'm longer than you, but we both lived a while. Do you think the trends are not good in terms of the overall attitude of the system toward the citizens, or what do you think in general?
It's gotten to the point where life and people no longer matter, so that health insurance companies, now if you have insurance on your car and it's an accident or stolen, they pay you off, right?
Yeah,
they take
sure.
care of it.
Yeah.
God forbid you have a fire in your house, they take care of it. Right? Health insurance companies, they look for a reason not to pay you. So to me, that's not insurance companies. These are people who've gotten together, say, let's charge premiums and see how little we can pay out.
What's the difference between the health insurance and the automobile insurance? The automobile insurance people would have a reason to say, well, you made a U-turn or some reason to get out of it, but it doesn't seem to be the case with health.
With health, one of the big health insurance companies, I talk about it in the book, is United Healthcare. They deny the stats, not my stats, 500,000 claims a day.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
And there's a woman, Linda, I always forget her last name. She was a retired doctor or something, I don't remember. It's all in the book. And she took a job as a claims examiner, right? And after 6 months, she saw what was going on, that they actually train you and teach you how to deny claims.
Wow.
And she said she'll never forget, there was this one claim they had to deny, she felt. Now, this is testimony. She gave it before Congress. I'm not making this up. You can Google her.
No, yeah,
okay?
I understand.
She denied this person's operation. The fellow died when he should have been entitled to the operation. She said it's amazing. It's just business as usual. There's no criminal charges. There's nothing at all. Business just goes on. And she said all the time, she looks downstairs and they're installing a $3 million piece of statue artwork. Right. And she gave this testimony to Congress. And you know what Congress did?
What?
You tell me. What do you think
I'm
they
not
did?
sure. They could have just sat on it or
there
something.
You go.
Depending on where the money coming
go.
from K Street. Yeah.
So
unfortunately, yeah.
The problem really in this country isn't corporate greed. It's the people, the government, allowing them to do that.
The government and the corporations are in league with one another, are they not? You got Citizens United, they can put unlimited money into buying the campaigns and so forth. So there's a linking up with the government and the big money interests, is it not?
I think it goes beyond linking up, Harold.
Collusion.
I was watching Bill Moyer one day, and Bill Maher, and like he said to him, outside of social issues like abortion or something, there's no left and right wing. It's all USA Incorporated. They don't care who gets in. Okay? They give an equal amount to both parties.
Yeah.
That's it. And if you don't pass legislation, guess what? You don't get money to run your campaign next time.
Right.
So
they win whether if there's a two-horse race, they win in both cases.
Yeah,
they can win. And they just go back and forth and get what they want.
Yeah, they are the government. There's no
So in that sense, in terms of the word justice or appropriateness or human relationships and so forth, which it's getting worse with time through the decades.
Sure, human life doesn't mean anything at all. I mean, look what they're looking to do. You know, the big corporations don't pay tax while the government claims that they have huge brackets. Sure, they have huge brackets, but they don't pay that bracket. They pay a small percent.
Or even they have to pay is only just a small matter, a little slap on the wrist. Even if there's something illegal that they may have done, they can get around, they can do it, and they'll never, as you notice in 2008, nobody has gone to jail for disrupting the entire economy the way those people were largely responsible for doing at the top of the political and economic system.
Under the guise of if anyone is prosecuted, it can cause a collapse in the financial system, which is nonsense, because if someone died, Jamie Dimon, God forbid, or Blankenfeld, not wishing anyone bad.
Yeah, sure.
The financial system would not collapse.
Yeah, I still remember. You remember back in that fateful day was September 20 of, was it 2008? And Mr. Paulson had, they made a movie out of it, Too Big to Fail. You've seen the movie?
Yes.
Good. We got one of our producers over here, Danny Darrow, had lines in that film, and proud of him for that. He's a great guy. But anyway, he came and he had to go into Nancy Pelosi and get down on one knee, and he had a 3-page thing. He said it has to be passed by the Congress this week, signed by the president by Friday, or the whole world is going to fall apart. The whole financial system is going to fall apart.
The sky is falling.
Do you think it was true, or was that hyperbole, or
it was ridiculous?
It was ridiculous, you think? Yeah.
Hey,
you're not in a position to really know, like those people who really know. And they did sign the legislation. They did do the thing they had to do to bail out the banks in order to save the system, or else the whole world would fall apart without our financial giants.
Okay, put it this way. It's been very simple. If the government stepped in, kicked out the bigwigs, and replaced it, the banks weren't falling. You just put in other people to replace
the claim by Mr. Paulson getting down on one knee was bogus. Was it bogus, or they seemed to be? The film was Sorkin made the film, a really good film and everything. He seemed to be putting the premise forth that was in fact the case, that the whole world economy would fall apart if these major players were allowed to go under.
So fall apart,
or go to jail even.
Would that mean that people would not be going to work the next day?
Probably not. But
why?
No.
Shops wouldn't be selling their wares. Farmers wouldn't be selling and shipping their stuff to market. People wouldn't be buying food. What was going to fail?
Well, wait a minute. Let's take another analogy. Then I'm old enough to remember Franklin Roosevelt.
Okay.
And we had another Great Depression that happened in the 30s. John Steinbeck and the Grapes of Wrath and all that sort of thing. And at that time, Mr. Roosevelt came in, Franklin Roosevelt, and many of the things historically, they would say that Mr. Roosevelt, he did a lot of things New Deal, which set the pattern for a liberal way of seeing things that served well for a few decades and all that. But at that time, he's noted for having saved capitalism, that capitalism was on the verge of collapsing then, but the measures he took was able to save capitalism. And what do you think of that charge then? Was that true? By doing certain things, he saved capitalism, and capitalism is worth saving.
Probably.
Or the private sector, or what? How do you deal with all those big
and
issues?
what did he do? Remember the was it the PWR or
WPA?
WPA. He created
Works
work.
Progress Administration.
He created work.
Yeah.
People went to work. When they go to work, they earn a salary. They pay taxes. They buy shoes for the kids.
Yeah.
They go shopping.
Yeah.
Right? Taxes being paid. Factories are manufacturing because you have now all these consumers that before were on Apple lines.
You had a lot of the Dowds who had their places foreclosed, and it was terrible. It worked hell on a whole lot of people. It was a very, very difficult time. It probably was only the spending on the war effort in the Second World War that really got us out of that terrible ditch that we were in.
The bottom line, it was government spending. Whether it was WPA, the war, it was government spending that put people to work.
And the government spending came big time with the war effort.
Yes.
And that brought us out of it largely.
Right.
But the idea that these people will save the system, is the capitalist system and the big players and the big banks and the International Monetary Fund and the institutions necessary for there to be anything other than a terrible disaster into horrible anarchy that would run rampant on the whole planet if the capitalist system were not allowed, were treated in the way that in an almost criminal sense they could be for having messed up the economy or having been responsible for messing up the economy. The political and business leadership for doing that, they would be punished for that. Would that mean the end of something that would be ushering in hopeless anarchy all over the world, and the things that they're able to do would not be realized? And should we get rid of the private sector or not? And the private sector and the public sector are two things that are running the system over, in conjunction with one another. And how do you see all these big issues? Well, and what do you think about the human prospect as we look out ahead in this year, 2014?
Well, we need the public sector. There's no doubt. Okay, and capitalism is great. All that's happened is capitalism has run amok.
Oh, you think that?
Well,
now, you were acting like a capitalist when you grew those Brussels sprouts, were you not? You were taking the initiative. You were a businessman. You were practical.
Right,
you were working.
Practical.
And you didn't need to have people coming along telling you couldn't do this, you couldn't do that, and everything. Yeah. So I heard you having a brief against the government and the private sector or the public sector effort in terms of the operation of the economy.
Only in terms of letting big corporations run away. In other words, I think we have a dozen or 13 huge corporations, GE, Exxon, whatever, that we give money to instead of them paying taxes.
Yeah, well, we gave an awful lot to bail them out in 2008.
Forget that. We
Trillions.
give them money each year.
Yeah, okay.
Okay? So that, is something that government and corporations are running amok.
Yeah.
I mean, these people, these corporations don't need to get tax refunds on taxes they didn't even pay. You and I are financing them.
Right.
They're very profitable. Their claim is our dividends would take a hit. Well, your dividends would take a hit. The few people who collect dividends, what about 300 some odd million people who are being, literally sucked dry, with having to do with less services, paying more taxes.
You see the kids coming out of college now with this huge debt. It's higher. You see it's reported now in the news. The debt is higher among the college kids coming out than it is on credit cards now. The interest payments that there are on that build up. That's a horrible burden to have to put on the shoulders of a 20-year-old.
How about the fact that bankers on Wall Street get money for free, 0%.
Yeah.
Students have to pay big interest on their loans.
And it cannot be bankrupt.
Right.
They cannot do bankruptcy.
Now here's another one.
You do a lot of advice to people on how to deal with some of these things.
Absolutely.
We want to get to some of that good advice you can pass on to the viewership, but go ahead,
Here's another thing, came across the other day, a new thing. When grandma or grandpa co-signs for their grandchild in college for the student debt, and he's not able to meet the debt, the one thing that's untouchable, government goes after their Social Security. Grandma and grandpa's Social Security.
Put them out on the street.
They go after Social Security and take a percentage of it away for the student debt.
Yeah. So there's.
So where's our this is supposed to be of the people, by the people, and for the people. What's going on here?
Well, what's going on is that there's a lot of debt. Now, you are not trying to. You're not a Oh, you know, we've had economic theorizing from Keynes to Schumpeter, we've had Hayek and all these kind of things that informs the political process. One of the things is the labor theory of value that Mr. Marx talked about.
Right.
And Mr. Marx said that the evil institution is the private property. You know, private ownership is what caused the concentration of all power in the hands of a private sector. And they said what we ought to do, they took it to the extreme in the Soviet Union, finally under Stalin, they said we'll do away with the private sector. Private sector is the evil institution. Now we're talking about the government and private sector institutions, but they did away with it and it didn't work out very well. It all was nomenclature, all within the government. You don't want an all government thing or totally socialist, do away with the private sector. So what do you advise, Mr. Harris Helps, in your columns that you make available to people on your website?
Here's an interesting thing.
Tell me.
You mentioned
give us direction.
You mentioned Roosevelt.
God bless him.
We had a war.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I believe that what Mr. Roosevelt did, he said nobody is going to get rich on a war. Right?
But they had a character in the comic books. Remember Daddy Warbucks?
Yes.
That was the father of Little Orphan Annie?
Right.
There were Daddy Warbucks all over the place. Yeah.
There's always a certain amount of wealthy people. There's nothing wrong with that.
Oh, okay.
Do you know there was a headline in one of the newspapers which he had the military carry out a CEO of a large corporation in his chair, okay? And the photographers snapped a picture of this CEO of this huge corporation.
CEO, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
CEO,
yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And the headlines were something like, no one's getting rich off a war, okay? So there was a combination. You could make a lot of money, but you were limited to, I think it was 7%, 12%, or 10%, whatever the number was, when you dealt with the government and you did a certain amount of business volume over a certain amount. Now, there was just the other day a stat, okay?
Yeah.
Halliburton.
Yeah.
Now, we know about Iraq,
Yeah.
weapons of mass destruction, which didn't exist, and Cheney's old company, Halliburton, was subcontracted the war.
Oh.
And you know how much they made on that war?
I don't even want to think.
$39 billion.
That's what Mr. Everett Dirksen would call real money.
$39 billion they made off that war. And there's the difference today and back in FDR time when he said no one's going to get rich off a war, you're limited. Even I'm a contractor. I do work for the government. And if you do over a certain amount of volume, you have a limited percentage that you are allowed to make. Not today.
Not today.
Subcontract a war that should never existed and they make $39 billion while young people get killed.
Yeah.
So that's the difference.
Now
between
we said,
today.
I was asked you earlier, we could take a look at the century or go back to the 19th or let's say the whole sweep of human history. Are things getting better or worse? Are you optimistic, pessimistic for the human prospect?
Unless something huge happens, I'm very pessimistic.
Very pessimistic.
Very.
Yeah.
And you know, there is a way of changing things very.
I think you've got some of it in your book, if I'm not on a number of very practical suggestions.
It's all practical. It's all
we ought to get
true
some
life.
of that wisdom across to the viewers, right? Who could use it to their own good advantage to help their
That's
kiddies.
everything that why I wrote the book.
All right, good. Trying to help.
Okay.
Harris Helps. That's what
Okay.
your site is called. Yeah.
Now, so let's talk about money.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
One thing we have to understand money.
Yeah.
What is it? Why? What do we use it for? What is it? You know, what's it for?
Popular song said it makes the world go around.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, I was very fortunate at a young age to have a little understanding. What happened was I was doing well in business I was in my early 20s, and there was this car that I wanted.
Yeah,
And
sure.
I got
In
this
your
car.
early 20s, you want a car.
I
yeah.
got this car, and I was happy. But I realized something. I was happy not because you touched the car and it gave off fields of energy of happiness. My feelings of happiness, basically I realized, was me feeling me. That part of me that is happiness. Sometimes we touch a place in ourselves which is anger, joy, glad, sad. I was touching a place called happiness, and